Welcome to the Beyond Atheism podcast, with me, Nathan Alexander, and my co-host, Todd Tavares. This podcast moves beyond questions of God's existence to ask, what's next in a godless world? Beyond Atheism is produced and distributed by Atheists United Studios.
As atheists, we often find tremendous stress and conflict between having a secular culture and relying on religious leaders to provide rituals and lead ceremonies. Leaving a religion does not mean abandoning all rituals and traditions, but it does require us to adapt them. While some of these have become easier and more common to celebrate in an almost purely secular manner, consider the widespread adoption of happy holidays and a secularized Christmas holiday, others are fraught and more challenging. Thankfully, secular alternatives are being organized around principles of humanism, where non-believers are taking on the roles that have traditionally been the realm of religious authorities. To talk about how this is happening and who is filling the void, we are joined by Sarah Ray. Sarah is the president of the Humanist Society Board of Directors and an endorsed Humanist Celebrant Invocator. She's a transgender woman who has also been a podcast producer and host since 2015. Her current podcast is Humanist Trek, a comedy Star Trek podcast about the humanism in Star Trek. Sarah, welcome to Beyond Atheism.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. It's good to talk to you. So before we get into talking about what a humanist celebrant is, could you tell us a little bit about your own background, whether you grew up religious and how you came to be a humanist?
Sure. So I grew up in a very small town in rural Illinois, the rural Midwest, and it is exactly what you imagine Children of the Corn style. I'm from a town of 1,400 people. I had a high school graduating class of 32. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody knows everybody's business. And there are still in this town no stoplights, and at last count 8 or 9 churches. And so everybody went to church, right? It is the rural Midwest. And so I grew up in a Christian church. It was a First Christian church. Pretty lukewarm. We weren't like the swinging from the rafters or handling snakes or anything like that. We were in church on Sundays, and that was that. So I grew up Christian, and at one point I founded, I think it was maybe 7th or 8th grade, I started a Bible study club at my school. I was that kid. And so I was sort of on the track to, like, I could see myself becoming a preacher and going into ministry. And that all eventually came crashing down, of course. I left that and I was going to a Church of God with a girl that I was seeing at the time, and I was doing a one-on-one Bible study with the pastor. And the more we read, the more we studied, the more ridiculous it sounded to me. And so, studying the Bible led me away from Christianity, which is a common story that a lot of people have.
Yes. I know it's a reason to support reading Bibles in the school, because if everybody's reading it, nobody's going to be believing that stuff.
Yeah. So then I spent some time as an apatheist. I just didn't care. I had bills to pay and life to live, and it didn't matter to me. And so I didn't really think about it. And then I really started to deal with this incongruence that I was feeling in myself. And back when I was discovering trans wasn't a word even, we were jokes on the Jerry Springer show. I didn't know my wife was a man or whatever. And like, so I had these feelings of like, I don't fit in this body, and this just, something's not right. And so I was starting to work through that. And what I had started seeing, all of the attacks, once I realized, like, okay, I am a queer person. I'm a part of this community. We started doing a podcast about it in 2015, and I was talking through, like, this is what my journey is like, transition. And then eventually you get to a point where you're just putting your bra on one boob at a time like everybody else and going to work. So that there's not an exciting show to have about that.
Right.
So we pivoted to let's talk about stuff going on in the news really related to the LGBTQ community. And guess what? 99% of those are here's religion attacking this marginalized group over and over and over. And then I hit my angry atheist phase.
Yeah.
I see. Right.
Then I
Wow.
was
Right.
then I was mad.
And that's, I mean, that's that trajectory, that path kind of strikes me because one of the things that we're seeing a lot of now is the rise of the nuns. And I
Yeah.
think like the idea of like the apatheists, which is a great word, by the way, that sounds perfect for describing nuns. And then like how you took that next step. Was that your first, like, other than the well, maybe Bible study was the first sort of bit of investigating the life politically and becoming more engaged in a community, or was that, like, your first entry into it?
That really was. That moment was sort of I have found a people and a cause and the first that I had ever considered. I don't think I remember hearing about or learning about like atheist or atheism or what that means. Like I didn't come with it's the scarlet letter, it really comes with a lot of baggage. But for me, I don't think I had gotten those lessons as a child growing up in the church that, these non-believer people are wicked and evil eating babies and whatever nonsense folks tend to be taught or to believe. So I think that probably made my ability to claim that label a little easier, that I didn't have a stigma attached to it that I had to work through.
But that also seems to have led you to humanism. How did you discover that?
That came about when we started a local atheist community group in Florida in a very, very red county, like a place I grew up, church on every street corner, pretty rural. And there had been atheist activists in this area before. The press that they got was really negative, like going to school board meetings and shouting people down and that sort of thing. So we took an approach of, okay, we want a community group. We want people to be able to come together and we agree that we don't believe in this one thing is not enough for that. That's kind of, it's tenuous and hurt, and trying to get atheists to do anything is like herding cats. And so it's the values that we have that are the glue that bring us together and hold us together and create the community. And that's when I learned, oh, those values that I have a name, and it is humanism, it's compassion and empathy and altruism and all of these the wonderful things about humans and our relationship with each other. That's what humanism describes. And so I went, yeah, okay, I connect with that very deeply. But we named our organization the Atheist Community of Polk County because it's a scarlet letter in a red county with a lot of stigma attached to it. And so we set a goal of, we're going to use humanism under the banner of atheism to show folks that the things that they think, the preconceived notions they have about atheists and what we are and what we believe is completely wrong. And so we were out like we created a program where we were cooking hot meals for unsheltered folks and would go down to the parks and hand them out, or different places where we knew they were staying. During COVID, we joined forces with a number of other groups that you wouldn't think of first to call in a situation. It was us and the Unitarian Universalist Church, and there was a local queer youth nonprofit that got involved, and Planned Parenthood and the Teen Pregnancy Prevention Alliance. So this odd group of people came together and said, we're going to do a food bank, but we're going to do it different. And what I learned in doing this is a lot of food pantries, they put up gates that don't need to be there. For the most part, it's all reclaimed food that was going to go into a landfill that gets handed out like groceries. And sometimes they ask you to say a prayer with me before you get a meal. We got to study the Bible together. Or some were like collecting your information, like I need your name and social security number and all of this stuff for the purposes of making sure that you only came once a month. And so our approach was there are no gates, there are no strings. I don't care if you can afford food on your own or not. I don't care if you have a job or not. I don't care if you're a citizen or not. If you're hungry, come see us. We'll give you some food. But also, it's COVID. So we don't want you to come see us. Actually, we'd prefer that you stay home. So it was like we developed this almost similar to Meals on Wheels, but with groceries, where folks would apply and we plotted it all out on a map, and our volunteers would come in and pick up a route. And so we try to keep it like close to your neighborhood so that you're serving your neighbors, and you'd get a route of like 10 and take your 10 boxes and deliver them to the doorstep of folks. And it was fantastic. And you know, that's the kind of press I wanted us to have. Look at, look at these heathens out doing good in the world. It's really hard to argue with people who are doing good things.
Well, you didn't make them pray. I think that's one
Right.
reason to slag you. Now, was this? We've already gone pretty far afield from where I expected this to go. Because this is still before the Humanist Society. Is that correct?
It is. I got involved with the Humanist Society largely through doing invocations. And
Oh,
this
oh,
is
wow.
this is something else that I did as part of the leader of a local community group. Um, so, for those who may not be familiar, for city council meetings, usually local government proceedings, oftentimes they'll start with a prayer, and that particularly goes against the idea of a separation between church and state. So what we do then is look for opportunities where there are almost always the Christian prayers said before these meetings and ask to get on the list. Sometimes you don't have to be a member of the clergy. Members of the public can sign up. Every place is different, and so you have to kind of do a little research to figure out how it all works. But one of the organizers of the Central Florida Free Thought community, which was just up the interstate from us, north of Orlando, we were south. They have a very robust invocation program. And one of their directors was on the board of the Humanist Society and said, "Hey, this is the thing you should get involved with. This is, you're passionate about this stuff. Let's get you involved." And so I served some time on the board, and then in May this year, I was bumped up to the president, and we're really trying to like we're at an interesting point of growth where some of the things that we've wanted to do for a long time, that people who've long gone and come and gone, visions that they had, and what the organization can do is we're at a really exciting point where we can jump and do things that we've not been able to do before. So I'm excited about that. But the invocation process. So one of the invocations that I gave was at another little small podunk town in rural red Polk County, Florida. And this was we had a member of our community, a member of the community, a resident, asked us to come do an invocation at their city council. And so I followed the process and I made the request, and they knew they couldn't turn me down. So, and I show up with my the elevator pitch for a secular invocation is you were all elected because of the specific talents and skills and knowledge that you all have to bring those things together for the betterment of our city, our county, our whatever board you're sitting in front of. And I would ask that we all recognize that we're here to serve all people and make decisions that are in the best interest of all citizens. That's it. I mean, that is the skeletons of a humanist invocation, and you can get flowery from there and add quotes and so forth. But essentially, that's you were hired to do this job. Now let's go to work, right? Three of these city commissioners walked out on me, one of them leaving a Bible in protest on the dais, and then proceeded to name their own Christian chaplain as the one who would be doing all of the invocations from now on. No more Sarah.
Mm,
Of course. Oh my God.
wow. That's
Yeah.
it's like it's such a kind of a simple and sort of straightforward thing, and yet it still produces this reaction. Is there
Totally.
like is there kind of a rotation of other like religious leaders, like, that you would have people from different faiths coming in, or none? Or how do they
In
decide like who actually gets to do the invocations?
in some places that are more diverse, yes. And all of the processes are different. The one that I did for the county was you have to put your name on their list by November. And then early January or early December, they send out, kind of here's the calendar dates for all of our meetings, first come, first serve. And, others do it differently. But the ones that think about all of their constituents, and this is the thing to really take away from it, right? Is that these people are supposed to be representing all of us, not just those who agree with them.
Yeah, I mean, it's really shocking when you consider how tolerant we are of them and their religion and their beliefs,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, our
We
preference would be that we don't do invocations anymore. I don't clock in. I'm a lunch lady. I don't clock in at the kitchen and, gather in the break room and say some prayers first. No, I clock in and go to work. Let's all clock in and go to work. That would be the preference. But because there is court precedent that says that it's okay for them to do this so long as it is inclusive, then we have to hold them accountable to being inclusive.
Yes, and that's it sounds like that's what that's the mantle you've taken on and you've decided to carry. But there are many different hats that humanists can wear as sort of religious leaders or ceremonial heads, celebrants, chaplains, invocator, is that right? Invocator?
Mhm.
It sounds very Star Trek-y, Invocator. And lay leader, what are they? What are the differences and why do we need them?
Yeah. This is exciting stuff. Because until I got involved with the Humanist Society, I had no idea that such a thing existed, and I didn't know that we needed us either. So when you think about the condition of being human, being a social species, being a member of a social species, this tradition and ritual is important to us socially, and that obviously goes beyond religiously. We celebrate birthdays and anniversaries, and there are all sorts of secular things that we mark with ritual and tradition. And so the idea that religion would have a corner on that market makes absolutely no sense when not everyone is religious or not everyone is your type of religion. So when you think about celebrants and the Humanist Society as an organization, we endorse all of these categories of humanist professional. The organization is 85 years old this year, speaking of celebrating anniversaries and birthdays. We are, and we came out of uh, a Quaker foundation. Some Quakers decided they liked the values, but not necessarily the theistic stuff, and created a humanist society of friends to compare to the Society of Friends, Quakers, and that's what grew eventually into this organization. And so even back then, they were ordaining clergy, a lot of religious language sort of tied up in it, of course, because it is built upon the scaffolding of religion. But if you want to get married and you don't want to go to the courthouse and you don't want to, you know, have a priest, well, you do. Who do you call? In some states like Colorado, you don't have to have anybody. You can self-solemnize and just you both sign the document that you agree. So there doesn't need to be an officiant or a ceremony or anything. And yet, as social creatures, coming together over those moments gives us something. We take away something positive from those experiences. And so it's important to keep having them. So weddings, any life milestone event, and that can be, baby namings. I think about my experience a lot as a trans person. There's so many milestones along the way. My first therapy appointment, my first pill when I'm on my first hormone replacement therapy. Um, some of us choose and are able to get surgery. There's a lot of moments along that path that warrant celebrating, that warrant getting some friends together and saying, let's do a ceremony around this to celebrate your new name or whatever it is. So any of those life milestones, and the great thing is because we don't carry a lot of baggage, a lot of specific religious expectation, you can make up your own thing. Like whatever you want to celebrate is a great reason to get together and have a ceremony. Sobriety. I mean, you name it. It's a good reason to get together and take a moment and pause and reflect. And that's pretty much, the role of a celebrant is to leaning on the values of humanism and the common human experience to to celebrate these important events. End of life. So we have, our chaplains do a lot of work with folks who are at their end of life. And then what does a memorial service look like? How many times have you been to a memorial service where, for someone that that you're close to, where the people who get up and speak don't seem to have known that person at all, and they're just, or have an altar call at at a funeral, at a memorial service. And let's talk about John and how, godly he was. And if you all don't get right with God right now and come down here and say the magic words, wow, yikes. So again, we're honoring a person. And there's a lot of opinion on in atheist circles, it seems, that when I go, obviously I don't want to be talked about like, oh, Sarah loved the Lord, because that's not true. But, and this comes from the role of a celebrant in presiding over memorial service, but your role in that moment is also to sort of help all of those in attendance find some first step in the grieving process. So knowing that you have a diverse audience, I'm not going to say a prayer, but if a family member wants to get up and say some, recite a Bible verse or a psalm or something that's meaningful to them, that's fine. Knowing that, there are people in the audience from all different backgrounds and beliefs too, and they need closure and the ability to process this loss. And so providing a little something for everybody is kind of a tightrope to walk.
But is
Hmm.
there a playbook do you have like you were saying, to compare to a religious one where, I mean, I grew up Catholic, everything is very specific and very laid out, and you do this, and then you do this, and you stand up, and you sit down, and you kneel,
Yep.
and but it sounds like this is coming from a place where it's drawing from the past and what people already do and expect from religious ceremonies, and just sort of changing it, contemporizing it, and secularizing it. Is
hmm
is that what people should expect when they do something like this?
Yeah, and I mean it, like the number of things that we could have a meaningful moment over, the way they look is completely up to the individuals, right? So if you're having a wedding and you don't want to do rings, we don't do rings. If you don't want to do, there's it's kind of pick and choose. Like there are elements that are common to weddings, both religious and not, that you can choose from. But we're not going to say a prayer, and we're not going to read from scripture, and we're not going to, do those pieces.
Do they ever
Um,
get really weird?
I haven't had any really weird anything. No, well, it depends on what your, definition of really weird is, I guess.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what seems to be very popular in the secular world right now is hand fasting rituals at weddings. I haven't done any of those, but I get feedback that they're very popular. It's a tying of the hands and a symbolic. Um, I couldn't tell you what the history of it is off the top of my head, but it seemed to be popular.
I think I heard it's like Celtic or something like that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, could be wrong about that.
No, I think
Yeah.
you're right. So then you have so then you have humanist chaplains, and this is a group of people who do an entirely different thing. Each one of these categories is sort of meeting a need in our community. And so chaplains work everywhere chaplains work, with some exception. Um, so, we have prison chaplains and hospital chaplains and university chaplains, nursing homes, that sort of thing. And this one was hard for me to wrap my head around, because chaplain has a lot of religious zhuzh on it. That's a that's a Christian word right there, and and so it took a while before I started really understanding, okay, this isn't, most people think like, oh, the chaplain's the person who comes and does the last rites with you, and that's who they are. They're the person in the hospital that comes and reads the last rites. And that may have been common, but chaplaincy has now really evolved into its own industry, and it's really about providing emotional and spiritual care. And spiritual care is another religious-y word that can, sometimes make people feel different ways. But essentially, it's just the idea that, again, in the hospital context, you're there and professionals are taking care of your physical needs. And shouldn't there be someone there to help with the emotional and the processing of what you're going through? And so it's really, they are a conversation partner to help you talk through your feelings and what you're going through, and sort of maybe reflect back to you and just help you get through the moment, whatever that crisis moment might be. We we still are working on getting chaplains into the military. That's a piece that, we have had an application in for some time and are waiting on their response.
So this sounds you have to go through official channels for this. Where do you have chaplains now? All of those places? Like,
Yeah. Yep.
wow. Do you know the
Um,
numbers?
we have 176 chaplains at the moment,
Wow.
working in all kinds of different fields. And there is a higher expectation with them because of the way their industry has come up. So our chaplains are required to have a Master's of Divinity or equivalent, a certain number of CPE hours, and so they've gone through some really formal, rigorous training around providing this kind of support and care to people. That's not just, fill out a form and now you get to be the thing.
Right? It's a professional position.
Yep.
No fooling. Wow.
Yep.
Mm. So, and for like the people who would want to be a chaplain or even a celebrant, what is kind of the process to, I guess it's different in both cases, but what is the process to kind of get that certification?
Yeah. It's a very similar process for the two. I mean, the biggest difference, I think, is that educational requirement. So you go on the humanistsociety.org, and there is an application that you can fill out. It asks for, your understanding of humanism and your journey and sort of where you are now, and um, how you got there. And you have to submit references, and then there's an interview, and then you go to the board for a vote, and the board votes weekly on all of the applications that come through, and we discuss and submit our votes, and then once that endorsement goes through, then you receive documents for your credentials and go from there. It's really not an overly complicated process, with the exceptions of education and those sorts of things. We're not trying to be strict gatekeepers from the humanist leadership, or whatever. Like, if you're a strong humanist and this is something that you're interested in doing, you should definitely apply and connect with us. And we even have, just this year, we revised our chaplain endorsements to include a level called aspirant, where maybe you've been a chaplain for a long time from a faith tradition and you're coming out of that and just trying to figure out where you land, and you're maybe not sure if humanism is the right fit. We know you can be a chaplain. We know that that's something that you have the qualifications and experience for, but maybe you need a little more education and study in humanism specifically. There's a path for that too now. So
I know atheists. I'm pretty sure Atheists United are our partner, I guess, who hosts our podcast. I think a few years ago they did a panel discussion with different humanist chaplains. Well,
mhm.
I know that we had, I think there was someone who was a prison chaplain, for example, and also on the panel was Shrishti Huku, who we had on our podcast, who's a university chaplain. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I'm
yeah,
familiar
yeah.
with that panel.
Oh, right. Oh, great.
Yeah.
Really? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
You
Small
were
world.
you were
Let's
not,
see.
were you on that panel?
I
No.
was not.
Okay.
Vanessa Gomez Brake
Uh,
is a board member of the American Humanist Association and a humanist chaplain.
mm,
And I think Anthony Cruz was on that panel too. And he's a chaplain that sits on our board.
right. Right. Once you get kind of certified as a chaplain, there's an additional process, I imagine, to find somewhere to be a chaplain.
Yeah, it's not like, okay, now you come work at the church, right? So, and there are other industry standards that chaplains tend to become board certified through. But yeah, then you go to the university or the hospital or wherever that has an open position. There's been one here in town for quite some time that I keep seeing on Indeed. And you apply and you go through that interview process for the job too, but you have to have the endorsement to get the job.
Mm, right. And how, like, in terms of hiring, has there been, like, I don't know what the right word, I don't want to say backlash, but do hiring committees seem to accept humanist chaplains? Or has there been a lot of pushback? Do you ever hear like, oh no, we're just not going to hire a humanist chaplain. That's not
I
what we
don't,
do. We're not
and I don't
chaplains.
know that you would ever hear that,
Yeah.
because then we'd be in court, right? Like,
Yeah.
if we're specifically going to discriminate against you because of your religious belief, they're not going to come out right out and say that probably. Not that, to any degree that I've heard, that it raises any alarms or concerns. It seems to be most of the chaplains who are currently working, who are humanist chaplains, would love to have more in their location, more in their ranks. They tend to be, at this point in the evolution, the only humanist chaplain in the room, which is a unique position to be in. They also get to educate their peers too on what humanism is all about and who we are.
Earlier today, actually, it's kind of coincidental, I suppose. Nathan and I were looking at some research that showed that, like you were saying earlier, one of the things we know is that like atheists are viewed as being bad, right? Tons of baggage that comes with it. Um, reasons to come up with reasons to treat atheists bad. But of course, in social research settings, the thing that they find again and again is that like atheists just don't see a religious another religious group as an outgroup. They just see them as other people, and it's not religion isn't seen as a barrier to interacting with someone or providing care for someone or just treating them like a decent human being would. Where we know there's a tendency for things to go the other way, both because of these outdated beliefs, or these stereotypes, and the way religion creates in and out groups. Um, But I do wonder if there is if either in humanism, if there are kind of boundaries to what's tolerated and how you find those. Are there practices or attitudes that if someone said, I want this in this celebrant, or this is part of the wedding, is there things that you would reject out of hand? Are there?
Everybody, I think, has sort of their own lines also. Like I mentioned before, like if I'm going to do your wedding and you want your mom to stand up and read scripture, I'm fine with that. And I'm happy to introduce her and make it part of the ceremony because it's what you want. I'm not going to pray. I'm not going to do those things personally. But if you want people to stand up and read, poetry or whatever, like that's okay with me. Um, there are others who would probably draw harder lines around what they're comfortable being part of, and that's important to have that conversation when you start hunting for who's going to be my officiant and what are we looking for. A lot of us, I think, promote ourselves as being a good fit for families coming together from different beliefs, or I have different beliefs than my parents, or that sort of bringing people together over our common humanity and not making it a big deal of, the Protestants marrying the Catholic, right? Like there's a way to make everybody happy, and I think a lot of us kind of, I don't pride ourselves in that being something that we enjoy doing.
Mm. Oh, it's so beautiful. To hear you describe it, it's so beautiful. So much better than everything that falls out of my mouth.
I was going to ask, I had some friends who got married a few years ago in the US, and another friend officiated the ceremony, and I'm pretty sure that friend got ordained to this Universal Life Church,
Yeah.
um, which I think well, maybe you can talk about what that is, and then why you should go with the Humanist Society instead of them.
Yeah. So I don't have any direct involvement with Universal Life Church. I've never been ordained by them or used their services for anything. What I do know about them is you fill out a form online and you instantly get recognized to do this thing. And that might be the right fit for you if that's what you're looking to do. Where the Humanist Society sets itself apart is uh, we're not just fill out a form and welcome to the family. Like you are an ambassador for humanism in these professional roles, and so we want to make sure that you understand the values and of humanism and the history and the ethics and how that can connect to these ceremonies. We provide professional development opportunities for you to learn more and branch out in your business if that's what you're doing into other ceremonies that you may not have considered before. So it's really building a community of these humanist professionals that, we have closed channel like Discord groups for endorsees to get together and discuss and share ideas. So the other piece that I think people need to be cautious of is there are a lot of states who are in the South, of course, who are who are making it harder for non-Christians to do anything. And so we're seeing and marriage laws in the US are super weird. Like it's governed by at the county level. And so if you're getting married somewhere, you have to go to the county courthouse to get the document and it's filed with the county. So it's the county that's has the process and the policies. And so however many, thousands of counties there are in the US, that's how many different policies and rules there are. Some of these places are starting to not accept what you might call a paper mill endorsement. There's some that used religious language, of course, of like they want you to be connected to a local congregation, for example. So, that's where our organization and the American Humanist Association come together and part in our partnership, and because they have local chapters and affiliates, and we have the quote unquote clergy of humanism. And so if we can connect those people together, then you have a local congregation that you're serving in some way. So yeah, there's and then the other end of that spectrum, like I said, is here in Colorado, where you don't need an officiant at all if you don't want one. It's like some of them make it really hard, and some of them make it super easy.
Yeah. Have there been problems for humanists?
Yeah, we have definitely had folks get rejected um, by the county. So again, some of them require you to register with the county, and so you have to go through that process too, to list yourself as a clergy person who is certified to solemnize marriages. Yeah, it's just they're so different from place to place, and what their requirements are, and we've definitely had people rejected. Usually, it's some oh, you didn't sign the letter in wet ink. We printed it off with the signature on the thing. No, we don't accept that. Okay, so send it to me and I'll sign it in blue ink so there's no question or whatever. Like some places really do make you jump through hoops and make it more difficult for people specifically who are not Christian or from one of the major
Yeah.
religions.
Oh, that's annoying. But you guys
Mhm.
persevere. That's
Of
amazing.
course. Of course.
So what's next? How do you see this shaking out in the next 5 years or so?
Yeah, growth. We're in a moment now of just really strong growth. More humanist professionals in more places. That's the goal. More humanist professionals in more places. And so, since I came on since I stepped up to the role of the president in May, we've executed a ton of things to get us closer to that goal, of our growth goals over year. We launched a whole new website, like from the ground up, started all over. We revised the different endorsement categories, particularly for chaplains, making that more accessible to people who have the chaplaincy piece, but maybe not the humanism piece. And then I would really love to see us, and we're working towards um, building out a more robust program of professional development. We do things like celebrant trainings, where in 2025 we're looking to 3 different locations to go and host a class on how to be a celebrant. And that goes beyond just here's what a ceremony looks like. How do you register a business and set up a website and promote your wedding business or your memorial business or whatever it is that you're doing, your celebrant business. So we're really looking to kind of beef up those offerings and what we provide to people. Um, Invocations is and that's the low hanging fruit. That's the one that everybody, whether you may not be comfortable creating and hosting a wedding, that may be a lot, but to get up and speak for 2 minutes, read off a paper for 2 minutes before your city council meeting, maybe that's more within your wheelhouse, and that's a thing we need from you too. And all of these roles are really about meeting people where they are, helping them in whatever moment of life that they're in, and uplifting humanism and its values, and what it's all the good stuff about humanity, and to sort of bring more people to that knowledge of there is a name for it. It's humanism, and this is what it stands for. And I think when people know what humanism is, I think most people connect with it just naturally, because it is all the good things about humanity.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But Sarah, is there a dress code?
No.
It's even
Now
better.
I will
Then
say
people can really connect with that.
I do have a stole. I will say I did get a stole, but I printed the Happy Human logo on my stole, and I have two. I have one that has like rainbow thread. So I have a stole if you want it a little more religiously looking.
Yeah. And where did you get that?
You can do that. Etsy, of course.
Oh,
Somebody
fantastic.
with a well, it was neat too, because it was someone who hadn't done humanism any like the Happy Human logo. So when you have an embroidery machine, you have to set all of that up when you do a new design or whatever. And so Mandisa Thomas, who's the founder of Black Nonbelievers, she turned me on to this, and she when she became endorsed as a celebrant, she got a stole and was posting about it all over social media. And I was like, girl, where'd you get that? I need one. And then I got two.
Yeah, smart. That's the way to do it. What's better than one? Two.
Exactly.
That's perfect. All right, I think we're ready to move on to the lightning round, which is called
Right
Can a
on.
True Atheist? Yeah, Nathan, I'm drawing a blank on the rules. Can you set us up?
Well, Sarah, do you want to it's usually called kind of true atheist, but do you want to do kind of true humanist or
I
are you
I'm fine with either one.
why don't we do kind of true humanist? Maybe that would be
Okay.
more
Okay.
more the curveball. So the idea is we ask a bunch of questions, kind of true humanists do such and such thing, and it's mostly tongue in cheek, and just a short answer and a short explanation of your answer. So our baseline question is always, can a true humanist believe in God?
And that's a great question. You will find yourself, if you go out Googling, you will find yourself folks who identify as Christian humanists or religious humanists or congregational humanists or secular humanists. And so I think when people say humanist, the shorthand tends to mean secular humanist. And certainly by the definitions that the American Humanist Association uses and the Humanist Manifesto necessarily omits the God belief. The other idea is, because you can have religious beliefs, but also the humanist values. Does that make you a humanist, or does that make you a Christian that adheres to humanist values? But yeah, you ask 1,000 people and you'll get 1,000 different answers. But the one of the core values beliefs in humanism is that the methodology of science is the best tool we have to know true things, and when you put God through that filter, it doesn't come up.
Mhm.
Great answer. I like that part. Okay, Sarah, can a true humanist pray?
Mm. I- Again, with the some who would identify as Christian
Can
or
can a
religious,
true
you
secular
can
humanist?
can
Let's keep
you
qualifying this.
Yeah, right. Can you? Yes. What are you praying to? Right, is the question. Is it, if you're praying to a deity, probably not. If it's more of like an affirmation to yourself, if I recognize now after religion that I was talking to myself, and there was a value to that in saying the troubles that were on my mind sort of out loud in my head, and knocking those ideas around in my brain was useful now that I recognize I was talking to myself.
Yeah, yeah. Uh,
No, final answer. I have a
okay,
bell
okay,
around
great.
here somewhere.
Um, all right, can a true secular humanist wear religious jewelry like a crucifix?
I don't know why you'd want to, but sure, it's a free country. Yeah.
Mhm.
I think it's silly that we wear the symbol of uh of an execution,
Yeah,
that people
Yeah.
often joke about, like, oh, wouldn't it be interesting if we all wore, like, the electric chair on
yeah,
a chain around our
Right.
neck or whatever, and like,
right.
how stupid would that be?
Yeah.
Right. Wearing a rifle pendant to remind everyone about Kennedy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we do that
Oh,
in our government now, just, because of our love of guns.
is it can a true secular humanist believe in ghosts?
I suppose so. Again, I don't know why you would, with that filter of, if science is the best way to know the true things.
Is science a tenet of humanism?
Um, I mean, not the word necessarily, but the natural world is best explored through the processes of science, and that sort of approach to learning and understanding the world around us is definitely a key cornerstone.
Okay, can a true secular humanist go along with a religious invocation?
go along with. What do we
I'm
mean
not
by that?
I'm not sure. Uh Ta
Many times have I been in the presence of someone praying, and I don't bow my head. I'm not going to be in deference to your thing. I will stand quietly or sit quietly or whatever is going on at the time, but that's my participation. I will respectfully stay quiet while you do your thing.
Yeah. Have you ever been at a big dinner and someone decided to say grace and everyone bows their head and you look around to see who your people
Yes.
are? You all kind of
Yes.
nod, give each other that going wink. Yeah,
Yeah.
very nice.
Yeah. It's interesting to do that at a church too.
Oh man, it kind of makes me want to go.
hmm Yeah, like, I will still end up at church for a wedding or a funeral or whatever. And definitely I definitely look around in those spaces to see who's doing
Right.
what.
That's interesting. Oh, that's so interesting. Okay, can a true secular humanist get married in a church?
Sure. You can get
That's
married wherever
easy.
you like. Yeah, absolutely.
Do you know of other secular humanists who still have like some even like vestigial religious practices?
Not personally. Not any that I know personally. No.
Yeah, but then there's stories of people who still do. It's part of the part of their learning,
Right. It
part
gets
of
sort of,
becoming.
yeah, I mean, especially when it's trained into you at a young age.
Yeah, so many more questions I'm thinking of now. This
right.
is would never end.
Um, all right. And so for the last one, can a true secular humanist prefer Star Wars over Star Trek?
Begrudgingly, yes.
Wait, is Star Wars also secular
No,
or
the
humanist? Is it or a humanist?
Star Wars is all about a religion. It's
I
it's
know.
the cult of
Mm,
the Jedi.
Yeah,
mm.
Boy, I just lost a
but they
bunch of
had
friends.
evidence.
What, midichlorians? Okay.
Oh, all right. I'm not waging this battle.
Secular people should really prefer Star Trek.
I think so. I think,
Mm,
and so this is the podcast that I do. Ali Ashmead and I, came together to do this podcast. We were both living in Florida. And as a part of the local community that I created there, we were doing a live show on YouTube every week called Free Thought in Florida. And she was there were like three or four rotating co hosts that would come on with me each week. And she was on the board of Go Humanity at the time, which was formerly Foundation Beyond Belief. And so we got connected because our local group was doing a lot of hunger related work, and their organization was giving micro grants to help local groups do those things that they were doing. And so that's how we got connected. And then I'm always up for starting a new podcast, so we started that show. And then apropos of nothing, having not discussed this with each other at all, one night we get on to do the show, and she says, "Sarah, I'm so sorry to tell you this. I don't even know how to tell you this. I can't do the show anymore. I'm moving to Colorado." And I was like, "No way! I'm moving to Colorado." And so we ended up 30 minutes apart. So we decided, well, Colorado is a lot bluer and a lot more progressive and a little safer for both of us. I'm a trans woman; she's a black woman. So better for us both out here. And it got tiring talking about, here's another anti-trans bathroom bill. Let's talk about that all over again. And trans people in sports, let's rehash that one more time. And we were just tired of doing negative stuff like that. So we thought, what positive stuff can we put out into the world? And we both love Star Trek. And the background of this is Gene Roddenberry, the creator of Star Trek, was a humanist. He was a member of the American Humanist Association. In 91, he received the Humanism and Arts Award from the AHA and came and gave an acceptance speech. And he was pretty old at that time, and it was an interesting speech. But what what you know about Gene from what he was doing was he was trying to tell humanist stories and slapping some, the facade of sci-fi on the front of it to make it a little more palatable. Um, One of the things that he pushed against real hard in the beginning was they said you have to have a chaplain on board. Speaking of chaplaincy, the network came back and were like, "Oh, if this is a submarine, this you're doing a Navy show in space. Well, you got to have a chaplain then." And Gene said, "Who's chaplain? A Christian, a Buddhist, uh, who? Who's chaplain? Is it an Islamic chaplain? Is it a Vulcan chaplain? Is it what of all these aliens that we're going to go meet? Whose chaplain would it be?" And so that was one of the things that he fought real hard against was we're not going to do religion in this show. This is about values. This is about how we decide the things that we do. And they got some stuff right and they got some stuff wrong. And so it was very interesting to go back to the beginning, the very first pilot, and we've been doing episode by episode with humanist glasses on, looking at like, okay, what were we supposed to learn in this episode? Or where did they get it right and where did they get it wrong? And it was the 60s, so there was a lot of sexism and so he did some great things about like race relations at the time and let's put all of these people from different backgrounds on the bridge. They're all working together. A Russian with an American with an Asian man with a black woman, and they're all going to work together to do all these awesome things. And then sometimes the woman got slapped on the ass because, she's the secretary or whatever. Like, so they didn't get it all right, but it was very ahead of its time. And then I was a next generation kid. I grew up on the TNG. And so I'm noticing we did the original series, the animated series. We're on the next generation now. And I'm starting to notice that I think I got my leadership style from Star Trek, not just my values, right? These were my values. And then I saw, oh, there's a word for it. It's humanism. But that idea of like infinite diversity and infinite combinations, that more diverse voices lead to better results for all. That kind of stuff, like I didn't know there was a word for it, but Gene was teaching us humanism all along, and just neat to go back and watch it through that filter, seeing things that we never noticed the first time. How racist McCoy was. You think about the words that man says. Spock, and you're green-blooded, pointed-eared son of a bitch. Well, his green blood he can't do anything about. His pointy ears he can't do anything about. How is that any different from saying you black-skinned person? It's not. He was racist against Vulcans. And they played it off as like these three the three top managers at the office, they have this jovial relationship where they joke around and but did anybody ask Spock if that was all right to joke around like that?
Yeah. Damn. Well, so how many episodes do you have now? That sounds like a lot.
It is a lot. I stopped counting by episode, and we're doing seasons now instead of episode by episode. But there's 79 original series episodes and like 30, maybe 20 something animated series. So
Wow.
we're around the 100 mark somewhere, I think.
Wow. Oh my
And
goodness.
and so much of a future ahead. Somebody posted on social media. This is the funniest thing. They commented something about, "Oh, I talked my friend so and so into listening to this dumb Star Trek podcast with me because it's a comedy podcast. This is not a PhD dissertation on
Right.
humanism. My friend and I get high. We are 420 friendly, and we try to make each other laugh while we talk about Star Trek and sprinkle in some light humanism as we go." But
Yeah.
and they were like, "I got my friend to listen to this dumb Star Trek podcast with me." And I just realized that there's like a decade worth of 90s Star Trek if you do it 1 week at a time. So
Yeah.
we got a long way
Wow.
to go.
That's great. You could do it forever.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see.
Fantastic. All right, Sarah, this has been fantastic. I'd love to talk more about Star Trek, but there's a whole podcast for that. How do people find that podcast?
Yeah. So that one is humanisttrek.com, and you can download that wherever you replicate your podcasts.
Fantastic. We'll also have links below. And as well as links for the Humanist Society if people are interested. So for the Humanist Society, that's if people want to join and if people are looking for celebrants, can they do both there?
Yes, we have a an online directory that you can search, and you can filter that down by in Colorado and I'm looking for a celebrant or whatever state. Um, and not everyone is listed, so if you go there looking and you're not finding someone, you fill out the contact form and connect with us because there are some who do it on the side, not necessarily as a business, and don't want to
Mm,
have their
right,
stuff in the
right,
public directory. So we can
right.
connect you with more people.
Mm,
Excellent. Good pro
awesome.
tip there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um, any social media as well people can find you on?
All of my stuff is generally at Humanist Trek, and the Humanist Society has several social media channels that we're starting to finally utilize, and that's either the Humanist Society or in some cases the Humanist Society US.
Mm, excellent. Fantastic. Sarah, thank you so much.
Thank you guys, I appreciate it. This has been fun.
Okay, that was Sarah Ray. It was nice talking with her.
Oh, great. Fantastic stuff.
Yeah. What were some of your takeaways?
One, I mean, some people just get so much done, Nathan. How do they do
Yeah,
it?
I know.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
And yeah, from the start, I think one of the things is at a certain point, collecting all these different anecdotes, you start to build evidence, pretty solid evidence for how people become atheists and what it's like, and just what liberation it is, just how freeing it is to leave a religion, leave a faith that prescribes your behavior and your identity to you, to be able to become a free individual. That and I mean, there's a selection bias on our part, but the people that we choose, what they find, what they choose is not hedonism and nihilism. What they find is an ethos that's compatible with living with other people in a social, political, ethical world. It's
Hmm.
shocking, isn't it, Nathan? It's the opposite
Hmm.
of everything we're told.
Yeah. Yeah. It was interesting. Like the way her story kind of followed a similar trajectory, I think, for what we've heard of kind of not caring about going from like being religious, not caring too much about it to being an atheist to then becoming learning more about humanism and like more kind of positive values and so on. So I think that was interesting to hear.
Yeah, and I think she's put it in a way that we've kind of heard other people. It wasn't about finding humanism and humanism. Oh my God, this is the best. This is when I use reason and rationality and look at a secular world. This is the conclusion I come to. Like I'm convinced by this argument. I think the way she put it was like it sort of described everything I'd always felt,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Like,
yes, that's right. Yeah.
we are moral creatures. We behave in this way. We leave a faith because it's objectively for whatever reason. We've seen myriad reasons.
Hmm.
But what most people come to is like there's a better way to live, and it looks like this. And very
Hmm.
often they describe humanism or some
Hmm.
tenets of humanism.
Hmm.
So that's really good to see. And the other thing that what that leads to is in her description of a lot of what these sort of positions do. When you look at the celebrants and what they're doing,
Hmm. Hmm.
and it came up in like drips and drabs throughout the conversation. We didn't make a point of it, but I kind of reflected on it a little bit that one of the things that having like a chaplain or a religious celebrant or having this invocator, if that was what they were called, I like the sound of that word, so I'm going to use that word. But they are meant explicitly or tacitly, or they're just like this vestigial power that
Hmm.
religion has to insert itself into
Hmm.
any secular happening, right?
Hmm.
You can
Hmm.
have a
Hmm.
university and or a prison or any like sort of large institution, but it has to have this religious chaplain there to direct the faith. You can have a secular meeting where you're going to talk about secular issues and the politics of the day, and it be completely divorced from religion, but you need to open it with a prayer. And that to use this institution against itself, right? To find this way where, okay, what we can do now is if they're going to start inserting this stuff into our thing, we're going to insert ourselves into their thing. And, and that's really nice. And you see the back and forth, and it's, it's sort of like the next level of the game. But that's really nice. And the last time we talked about this with Shristi was, I think, over a year ago, right? I
Yeah, I
think it
think
was
so.
over a
Yeah,
whole
maybe
day.
2 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
And the talk then of being like, well, we're trying to get one in the military. And
Yeah.
now to talk to Sarah, and she's like, oh, yeah, we have 176, and they're in all these
Mm-hmm.
different
Mm-hmm.
places.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, whoa, this is something that's happening without anyone noticing, without it being a
Yeah.
big brouhaha. And
Yeah.
it's just an ongoing thing where people are moving towards it. That's, I,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah. I think, and also, I think it's also is the point that like religion doesn't have a kind of monopoly over ritual. And like I think, Sierra mentioned this that there are a lot of milestones in our lives that we want to mark with some kind of ritual because yeah, I think I've been thinking more about this lately, like about it's it's meaningful to, if you have some kind of milestone, even if it's just a birthday or something, like you mark it with some kind of ritual. And I don't think it makes sense at all for religion to have to be like the only way to do that. And so I think
Absolutely
like
right.
having humanist celebrants or whatever to help you mark these moments, whatever they may be, I think that's important. And I think yeah, and I think yeah, it's important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a great way to take the power back, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's
We
right.
don't
Yeah.
need these outside alien forces to tell
Hmm.
us that our
Hmm.
birthday's important. We're able to
Hmm.
do it for ourselves in a way that's meaningful to ourselves.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Also important to note that the solstice is upcoming, and
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
always good to do, or a good reminder that keep this. I see a lot of signs around town that say keep the Christ in Christmas.
Right, right.
I just think keep the Saturnalia in Christmas. That's
Right,
what
right.
that's what I'm about.
Yeah. Um, yeah, no, I think yeah, like yeah, obviously it's not like an accident, I guess that, Christmas falls and you're the solstice and this sort of thing.
Yeah,
And I think
or
like
Easter the other
yeah,
way.
that's right.
Keep the
Yeah.
Estra and Easter is important too.
Yeah. Marking like yeah, even the changing of the seasons is a yeah, kind of a thing that not necessarily everyone needs to do, but I think if people find meaning in it, then that's great. And it doesn't need to have any kind of supernatural element to it to be meaningful.
Exactly. Right. If you want to
Mm.
have a solstice party, you just go out, you just have
Yeah.
your own solstice party.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah.
Or if you want to be a chaplain, you just sign up. And or even if you already are a chaplain, you're a religious chaplain, but you've lost your faith or you've left a faith, you can become an aspirant, and that's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's important again, like that um yeah, like religious traditions don't have a monopoly over those roles. Especially in yeah, in places of like where people are somewhat vulnerable, like in prison or something where there's probably a temptation or a strong temptation, I imagine, like, for if you're not religious to, you probably get pushed towards it. I would bet. So yeah, I think no, it's important to have those institutions and like, a group like the Humanist Society who is able to kind of provide that framework for chaplains and celebrants and so on.
Absolutely. Super important. Yeah. So several years ago when this is a sort of friend of the family. It's my brother's father-in-law, if you can follow that chain. But he I think he did the Life Church thing
Mm,
because when gay marriage was first legalized in the state of Massachusetts, a lot of families wanted to have a religious ceremony, but churches would not allow gay marriage. So he went out and he got an online church certificate and then bought some vestments, looked the part, and that did it. And that's all it takes, you know? And this is a little bit different. It's a very different perspective. It's not with this, getting the official seal of, godliness. But it was a very easy thing to take that over in a way that's what you want and what's important to you. So these opportunities are available if you're looking for a celebrant or an invocator, or you want to become part of this, you want to join in. They're open to it. We'll have the links down below. Check it out. Feel inspired. If this is your thing, go do it. It's going to be awesome. I feel pretty good about that. Nathan, what else we got? Anything else we need to do? Anyone to celebrate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Celebrating the audience. Thank you for
Yes,
listening.
of course. Yeah.
Check out the links for the Humanist Society. Check out Sarah's podcast as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
Um,
Yep.
and
Yeah, to get
yeah,
a little more in depth in humanism. Sounds
yeah,
like they've got a lot of hours there.
yeah,
We're gonna
yeah.
go deep in
That's right.
that one.
Yeah, yeah.
There's that.
Otherwise,
Yeah, what else we got going on? Well, anyway, if they want to find you are you on BlueSky now?
I'm on
Did you leave?
BlueSky.
You're on
Find me
BlueSky.
my link below because I don't know what it is.
All right, everybody, hit us
Yeah.
up there. You'll never find me. I'm too
Mm.
slippery. I'm too sly. So big thanks to the audience. Red Japan for the music, Atheists United for their support and their platform. The audience, the audience, the audience. You guys make the world move. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.